you've always had a really specific kind of like, yes, country boy identity. But what do you think it is about Worst Way and You Look Like You Love Me? Because it does seem like the career is changing in the midst of those.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if I had to describe what got me here, it was story type songs. You know, it was the Jesus Saves, it was Grandpa's Never Died, those kind of songs. You Look Like You Love Me was a TikTok kind of success. I've never had that before, so I haven't really changed anything I'm doing other than I'm experiencing success in places I never really had it before, and I think that's a kind of a tough thing to do when you've been writing songs as long as I have, to keep doing what you're doing, but appeal to a younger demographic that's finding music in different ways.
Oh, that's interesting. That makes tons of sense, but I hadn't clocked that it would be this like younger like crowd too. That makes sense. This is not a relationship status update, but I think something powerful from a marketing story happens when you let people use their imagination.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can never all the duets that I really loved growing up, you always kind of wondered, like, is there something going on or whatever? And I think as a fan, you kind of like that story. You like for stuff to be true.
Oh,
when you hear
you're
a
kind of rooting
song,
for it.
it's a love song, and that's what made George and Tammy so big, I think, is that all their songs were so like about what was really going on. And then when they split, George is still writing these like, love sick, heartbreak songs. So for me and Ella to have two songs like we do that are doing that much, I'm sure there's a lot of, rumors and speculation, but it's cool, man. It's cool to see people react and have emotion to something that you write, more than anything. That's what's enjoyable about it.
Yes, there isn't anything that is more satisfying than that.
And I don't know that I've told you this, but I didn't plan on her being on that song. I wrote it as a duet, but I had her come by the studio to put a female vocal on it just to hear it so I could potentially pitch it around. And she just crushed it. It sounded so great. And, we're from very similar areas in Alabama, and I think we grew up listening to the same kind of music. So, maybe that's why our voices kind of go well together, and we got the same kind of twang.
Yeah.
So, even having those two duets wasn't a planned thing. It just kind of happened, and I'm happy for her success, and it's fun having her on the road to do those two songs and have two hits with her.
It's really the dream, because it's so hard to recreate those kinds of moments otherwise, and especially when the fans like want to hear,
Yeah.
I read a quote about Don't Mind If I Do, that it reminds you of kind of the music that you fell in love with, country music.
I grew up in the burnt CD era, so we had a lot of different types of music. It wasn't like a country CD. It wasn't this. It was, I had a sister that was 10 years older than me. She listened to like Sublime and Weezer and Matchbox 20, and my mom was like Fleetwood Mac and the Mamas and the Papas, and my dad loved the band. Still one of my favorite groups, Leonard Skinner, Marshall Tucker Band. And then my granddaddy Buford, who, that was really kind of where my like big music passion came from, was like Roy Acuff and Merle Haggard and George Jones. So I listened to a lot of different music, but I can remember one of the first songs I ever heard that made me like really feel something from the lyrics was Sing Me Back Home by Merle Haggard. He was talking about the guy in prison, wanted to hear one last song, and there's something about that, something I could never comprehend, but that was what the song did, was it took me to a place I'd never mentally been before. Pearl Jam, Last Kiss was another one. I remember that one, like just picturing that scenario.
Do you remember that music video?
Yeah, yeah. And that was another thing too, is then if you heard a song, you wanted to go watch the music video. Yeah. Now for whatever reason, when I hear a song I like, I want to go watch a video of them playing it acoustic. I like to see like a really broken down version of it, and I feel like fans are that way. They can tell if something's true to the person singing it or not, kind of by watching them play it.
Oh, that's interesting. Almost like a real test.
Yeah, to me it was anyway. So I always loved playing songs acoustic for that reason. But there was a lot of songs, and Eric Clapton, that always made me feel cool. That made me want to play guitar and get on stage somewhere. I always thought he was the coolest guy ever. Yeah. So a lot of different types of music growing up, but certainly a lot of them had influences on me in some way.
It's 2018. You're working construction. You sign your record deal. You quit your construction job. How would you have defined success then? Or how would you have defined like, I made it? I'll make it when?
So the only goal I had that was of grandeur, I guess you would say, was to sign a publishing deal. I thought that I started selling a couple thousand tickets in the Southeast. We're selling out like Georgia Theater a couple of nights in Birmingham and Iron City and stuff like that. And I thought, I've written all these songs by myself. I think I'm a good enough writer to be able to make money doing that. And I thought that would be something that I could get. So I started taking publishing meetings. And while that was going on, record labels started coming to shows, and I got 4 record deals offered to me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And so I was in a good spot. It just, at that point, I accomplished more than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
And then being able to get a record deal signed and have a song on the radio was another goal I never had. And then it was playing the Opry, and then it was the #1, and then it was going on a tour with Brad Paisley, and then Aldean and Luke Combs and Luke Bryan and all these people. So it's been a whirlwind of stuff I never thought would happen, and it's just I've kind of, what I've always said was, when I signed a record deal, I was going to put my nose down and grind it out for a couple of years and just say yes to everything and go and try to get as much out of it as I could. And that was 2018, so it was 6 years ago. And it seems like it continues.
You mentioned touring with Brad Paisley earlier. One, I love Brad so much. He is such a great person, and he's so much fun. He's got a great sense. He's very funny. I feel like you kind of maybe were coy about your sense of humor at first. I feel like we're seeing more of your humor.
I don't want anybody to know how funny I am right off. Yeah,
okay.
So.
This is a slow reveal.
I'm slow playing it. No, I like to cut up. What's funny is, when you write songs like Jesus Saves or I Wish Grandpa's Never Died or Numbers on the Cards or whatever, these really serious type songs, to find a place for that humor in a show, or even those more lighthearted, fun songs. That's kind of what I was when Grandpa's was my big hit. It's hard to go out there and play something that makes somebody cry and then do something funny in the next one. But I think that's what I try to do with my show, is to make it something that appeals to everybody and makes you feel a lot of different types of emotion and kind of be on a journey. And I think that's what I try to do with this record too.
There are 2 songs specifically on this record, Real Problems and Alcohol of Fame, that I feel like Brad is probably going to be annoyed that you didn't invite him to write these songs. Or did you write both of those?
I did.
Yeah. I don't know. And so was he an influence of yours growing up, or what? Because that's hard to do.
Certainly from the humorous type lyrical song, he was one of the best at doing that.
He is.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
That song was it's funny because I hadn't really thought about that reference to him, but I'm Gonna Miss Her was kind of the same sentiment as Real Problems, and
yeah.
I just loved when you come up with a title that you think should have been a song written 10 years ago. How is Alcohol of Fame not a song?
I agree.
Or Real Problems, and having that
Both.
play on real. I just thought that was so great. So really fun songs to write. And, what's cool about it is Alcohol of Fame I wrote 2 years ago.
Really?
So getting to go back to that song, and then Real Problems is a brand new song.
Let's go all the way back to the beginning. And the song that opens the record is called That's a Mistake. It's 4 minutes and 20 seconds or something. And it ends with this long slide guitar solo. That's an interesting way to open an album.
It's, I grew up listening to a CD from front to back. I don't know that everybody does that anymore, but it's certainly a way I like to do it. And I always try to schedule my songs on my album for that reason. But it's just such an easy listen, I can remember when the song, it sounds like it ends, I didn't want it to end. And then it keeps going, and the whole time I was just into it. And it's tough with a song that's kind of down or mid-tempo like that to keep somebody's ear that whole time. But I just love that song and the vibe of it, and I thought that was a cool way to start the record off, and then we bring it back down at the end, so.
Yeah, that's just happening live in the studio. Y'all hadn't worked it up like that. Yeah, that's so fun. The magic of getting to be in a studio with people and what happens accidentally or accidentally on purpose is one of the most magical things about this job.
Yeah, and me and Dan have gotten to a really good place with recording. And going to record an album, a full album, really changes not only how you write songs, but how you pick songs and how you go about recording songs. Because something like that, you're mindful of where it's going to be on the record. And, for me, as much as I write, if I'm going to cut an EP of 4 songs, I'm probably not going to cut an outside song unless there's something I just absolutely love. So those songs That's a Mistake that I just really like, that I maybe not be a huge hit for me, but just is a really cool song and an easy listen, maybe it doesn't make an EP. And then if you do 4 EPs of those 4 songs and it makes a record, then none of those songs are on there. So when you go cut a full project, you really go and kind of pick songs strategically that you don't if you're recording in a different way.
I thought it was really cool to see Thomas Rhett talk about Jesus Saves and say, man, this song should have been nominated for Song of the Year. it's super I mean, one, it's kind of unusual for artists to speak out about other people's music like that. I thought that was interesting.
Well, knowing Thomas like I do, it doesn't surprise me, but it's certainly not something you see a lot of. First off, he's an awesome guy. I mean, you can tell that by his family and how he handles himself. And, he's had a great career because of that. I've noticed that too. You don't see people that have had 20-year careers in this business that are just bad people. It doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
But he's a song guy. He's a very analytical guy. He thinks probably too much. But he's a very great songwriter. He grew up in Georgia. I mean, he grew up down the road from me. Obviously, his dad is one of the greatest songwriters there is. So it's high praise from him because I know he is a great songwriter. I know he knows a great song, and there's no reason for him to do that other than he really believes it. I mean, he's not getting anything from me for doing it. So it's cool that he did that. Certainly had a little moment because people were really surprised to see that. I've started looking at my career in a way of like, I've already accomplished more than I ever thought I would. I'm in a great spot in my career with a lot of opportunities. So I just want to write songs that I could go play in like a writer's round. And if nobody clapped, I'd go, I don't care. That's a great song.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jesus Saves is one of those songs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally, I always think of Eddie's Attic in Atlanta. It was one of the first like small acoustic. And I remember like telling a story about a song, and I hadn't got to do that a lot. And I thought it was so cool. And it was like people really cared.
Yeah.
And when I write a song like Jesus Saves, that's where I picture playing it at and just being like, I don't care what y'all think. This is great.